Welcome to this new series of interviews, conversations with CEOs. The topic of this interview is going to be Adaptive Learning Organization, developed by NIIT. And we have with us Mr. Kamal Dhuper, who is the president of NIIT China and also Senior Vice President of NIIT Global. So welcome, Mr. Dhuper.
Thank you, Professor Juan.
Can you introduce your company? What are the operations they have globally and also in China?
We are a global talent development company, which does manage training services for corporates, universities, as well as individuals in more than 40 countries around the world. We are one of the top 20 training outsourcing companies in the world, as well as one of the top 20 IT training companies in the world. And over the last many years, we've won more than 200 awards globally for managing training as a service, which includes practices like custom content development, learning administration, learning delivery, learning technologies, as well as strategic sourcing of expert faculty in various domains. We've been in China now for 24 years. We came in 1997. We've trained about 500,000 learners in China in the last 24 years. Worldwide, we've trained 39 million learners in the last 40 years in over 40 countries around the world.
Where is located your head office?
Our headquarters for the corporate learning business are based in Atlanta. And our headquarters for the skills and career business, which is the individual business, is located in India, in Gurgaon. Okay. Our China headquarters is Shanghai.
Let's go to this model that you have developed, the Adaptive Learning Organization. Can you explain in which it consists?
Let's first understand why be adaptive and what is an adaptive learning organization. So what we've seen in the last many years is that businesses are undergoing a change because of increased digitization, as well as changing customer expectations. As a business were grappling with the pandemic last year, we saw that the ability to adapt learning priorities with the changing business landscape, changing business requirements, is something which is key for L&D, learning and development success in our organization. And what we've seen is every individual, every employee, every manager, every leader is having to undergo learning and learning in a new phase. The expectations from L&D of large organizations are changing fast. There are higher expectations. So what is an adaptive learning organization? An adaptive learning organization is the one which is able to sense, decide, and evolve based on what is happening around in the environment. And what we've seen as a part of our research is that the organizations which are adaptive, they are able to perform better both in terms of business as well as learning outcomes. So just a few examples I'd like to share with you. This was a research which we had done last year in 2020 with our partners in US Josh Bershin Academy, where this research was conducted through in-depth interviews with the senior leaderships of more than 100 global large organizations. And what we found was that the learning departments of L&D departments of adaptive organization, they are able to do more with less. So, for example, they spent 27% less on learning in their organizations, but they had a far greater impact in the organization. So that's one outcome which was very visible in the the ALOs, and that's the word which I would use for the rest of the interview for adaptive learning organization.
Okay.
We also saw that 53% of ALOs grew last year in spite of the pandemic. So they were able to adapt, they were able to respond, and they were able to grow while the other peer organizations faced a degrowth in the last year. We also saw that the ALOs had 21% more career opportunities for their employees, and the senior leaderships were rated 15% higher by their teams in terms of being able to lead an organization. So very clearly, adaptive learning organizations are better in terms of business outcomes as well as learning outcomes as compared to a regular organization, right? So when I say adaptive learning organizations are able to sense, decide and evolve, what is sensing? So sensing is about sensing both the internal trends as well as the external trends and factors. It is about intelligence, gathering data, analytics, analyzing that data with velocity, at speed, and being a trusted advisor to the business. So that's what sensing is about. ALO decides better when it comes to how to allocate its resources, structure partnerships. It's about leadership, it's about partnerships, and it is about innovation. Evolution, how do ALOs evolve, is about how do you transform and create increased value for the business. So that is about agility, that is about increased experience and adding more value. So it's about how you sense the environment, how you decide based on what you see in the environment, and how do you evolve. So it's a pretty interesting research report, which also talks about what are the characteristics in an ALO. So there are 15 characteristics which adaptive learning organizations have, which are given in the report, and I would not go through all the 15 of them. But it's important to understand what are the different kind of organizations. So as we see in the report, there are essentially 4 types of organizations. The first type is what we commonly call a reactive organization. A reactive organization is a one which has got limited awareness of the changing landscape. They are more reactive, not proactive, okay, and they are slow generally to act and respond to the environment. Whereas the adaptive organizations are the opposite. They're able to sense the internal and external environment better. They are more proactive because of being able to sense better. Their decision making is more agile, more focused. They use multiple ways, both flexible as well as variable capacity in terms of planning their learning and development. So that's the second type of organization. It's an adaptive organization. The third type of organization is what we refer to as a fragmented organization. A fragmented organization is one which is decentralized. It has got partial siloed structures. People work. Left hand does not know the right hand. Right hand does not know the left hand. As the word says, it's a fragmented organization. They are slow. And then there are organizations which are cohesive, which are slightly better than the fragmented organizations. But again, they are not very agile. They are also focused, but not as focused as adaptive organizations. And so this research which we did threw up some very valuable insights. And what it said was that 53% of the organizations we surveyed fell into the category of reactive and fragmented.
Wow.
Right? and about 30% of the organizations were cohesive organizations, and only 16% were adaptive organizations. Now, obviously, adaptive is better than reactive, and cohesive is better than fragmented. The organizations which are fast, agile, adapt to the environment, and are therefore able to perform better in terms of business outcomes or learning outcomes, are far and few. So what we saw also was, to enhance the adaptability quotient of an organization, it needs to go through a combination of learning transformations. How do you use agile? How do you use flexible variable capacity? How do you use digital ecosystems? How do you use personalized learning delivery? All those things are learning transformations. Becoming adaptive is a journey, and the time and investment which is required to become an adaptive learning organization varies based on the size of the business organization. So when the organization is small, it's easier to adapt. When the organization becomes bigger, it becomes that much more difficult, and therefore much more complex to become adaptive. It's a very interesting report. I can't obviously say everything about what's there in the report in a short interview, but I would recommend reading the report.
And I agree with you. It's a very interesting report that I think it's good reading for those interested in this topic of adaptive organization.
Yeah.
You mentioned important topics, important points: adaptation, agility. Those are terms that are very popular today.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something that is also critical for organizations to survive in today's competitive environment with all these technology changes in the consumer preferences. It's about innovation.
Yeah.
How the ALO can foster innovation in the organization.
If you look at an ALO, they are essentially innovative organizations, right? Evolution is about trying to find out new ways of doing the same things which don't work in the older ways, or finding new ways to add more value to your stakeholders. As they evolve, they look at how to be more agile, as well as flexible ways in their operating models. Because to be able to adapt, you got to be agile and you got to be flexible. And that's one characteristic which we see in most of the ALOs. And that's something which helps them to have an increased velocity, to be able to respond to the change. When you are looking at transforming an organization and transforming its workforce, the L&D departments of big organization need to look at various things like design thinking, in terms of how do you use digital technologies to be able to help your talent develop skills which are for the future of work. Okay, and it's all about the future of work. How do you plan your learning journeys with your people? So ALOs by design are very innovative organizations.
Is NIIT a ALO organization?
I believe we are an adaptive learning organization because we are in many ways agile. We are able to respond fast to changing requirement. We are able to get new technologies, methodologies, design thinking, digital solutions in the way we impart learning, whether it is internal to ourselves in the organization, or it is about helping our customers become adaptive.
Another topic that you mentioned before, this fragmented organization, and you said that there's organizations with many silos, in which the right hand doesn't know what the left hand does.
Fragmented organizations.
So in terms of norms, the internal system, that's also important, Otherwise, it's difficult to have the adaptive learning organization. The other point is about leadership. What is the role of leadership in the ALO organization.
Right. So your first question is about the norms and policies.
Yes.
Right. And what we see is that adaptive learning organizations, while they do have systems and processes which are documented in businesses, but they are not rigid. It's important to not be rigid. In fact, it's important to be flexible. Because flexibility is what gives an ALO the velocity to change. While it is important to have norms, policies, standards, which you stick to and comply with, but it's important not to be rigid. If it requires some norm or policy to be changed, the leadership intervenes, and they are flexible in terms of being able to change and get to where you need to in the new environment, right? The leadership pays a lot of attention towards learning as being the core of doing business, and how learning impacts the outcome of an individual as well as outcome of a business. So ALOs, focus a lot on learning. Learning is at the core of competitiveness.
Many times that these new ideas come from the people at the front lines.
Yeah.
Because they are in touch with the environment, competitors, customers, and often these ideas to reach the top have a barrier, which is the middle managers.
Yeah.
And how this learning organization methodology or culture is transmitted through the whole organization.
One of the important things which ALOs have is they are well connected. They're well connected right from top to bottom. Their entire leadership across the organization are clear about what are their goals, objectives, visions, and it's not a disconnected organization. It's a very well knit organization, and it is able to again sense, decide, and evolve together across levels. Okay, and that's quite the opposite of a reactive or a fragmented organization. In fact, that is one of the challenges which most organizations face, where they are not connected, and as I said earlier, the right hand doesn't know the left hand doesn't know the right hand, and that's one of the biggest problems which many large organizations can have.
Besides NIIT, do you have examples of ALO organizations that could be that we can learn from them?
There are many examples, ranging from large oil and natural gas companies like Shell, insurance companies like MetLife, pharmaceutical companies like IQVIA or UBC or Sanofi. In fact, there are a whole lot of examples which are given in the research report. I would recommend reading, because there are some very valuable insights which we discovered in this research we did last year.
It's interesting. You said that only 16% of the sample can be considered adaptive organizations.
16% only can be classified as adaptive learning organizations.
Yeah, so there are not so many. Yeah?
Yes, and as I said, it's a journey, right? It's about first understanding what does it take to become an adaptive learning organization. Because if you're able to adapt, you're able to change fast, and you're able to innovate.
Now, you've been in China, if I'm not wrong, 16 years already?
That is right.
And you work with many Chinese organizations, of course.
Yeah.
How does this model adapt to the Chinese context?
This model can adapt to any organization, whether it's a Chinese organization, a Japanese organization, an American organization, or any global organization, because it's a model which is about how do you adapt, how do you be agile, how do you change, right? It's about the leadership of the organization, the people of the organization deciding how they respond to change, how do they adapt to change. It works pretty much as well in Chinese companies as it would in any European or American company, I would say.
there are many of these organizations that are not ALO.
Yeah.
Do they have a hope? Can they transform a traditional organization, perhaps very hierarchical with many layers, silos, transform into an ALO organization?
I think the first thing is about understanding your organization as leaders, as to where do we stand. And first step I would say is probably always going to be to understand, are you a reactive organization or a fragmented organization or a cohesive organization, or you are already an adaptive organization, and understanding what are the characteristics of each of these organizations. So that's the first step. Then it is a journey, and don't be shocked if you find yourself in the 53%, which is a reactive and a fragmented organization, because many companies are in that state. It's important to understand where we are and figuring out if we have to become adaptive learning organization. It would require time and investment. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey which is definitely worthwhile, taking, because as we get into the next decade, there's going to be a lot of transformation, there's going to be a lot of change.
Yeah. And the problem is that we don't know everything that is going to happen. Yeah,
absolutely.
So we have to be ready.
Be ready, and all the more reason why you should, aspire to become an adaptive organization which stays relevant for a longer period of time.
You work with many Chinese organizations, as you've been in China for many years. You are a witness of all the huge transformation of this country. Yeah. What are the strengths and weaknesses of Chinese companies in general in this area, in adaptation, in innovation?
There are a mix of Chinese organizations. There are we see a lot of organizations which are very innovative by design, and there are many organizations which are innovative incidentally. At the same time, we see a lot of organizations which are not innovative. So there's a mix of organizations which you see in China as well as pretty much everywhere. It's the same thing. In China, what we see is that innovation is also about what stage of the life cycle an organization is. And you will see some very small startup companies, very innovative, very agile, good innovations on business models, how they use technology, digital technologies, to add value to customers, newer value propositions. How do they create minimum viable products which they keep testing, experimenting and learning, and iterating and re-iterating till the time it becomes a perfect product. We see a lot of that in both big and small companies. You see a lot of business model innovations in many industries. It could be in fintech, it could be in edtech, it could be in e-commerce. You've been in China, in fact more than I have been in China. Yes. You would have seen it much more than me. And I think China is a hotbed for innovations that we see. A lot of innovations which happen in China, I hear are beginning to get replicated outside of China.
Yeah, it's true that at the beginning China was absorbing innovation from the rest of the world.
Right.
But now China is also generating innovation that goes to other parts of the world.
So it's a good cycle. It's a good cycle.
Well, I don't have more questions for you, but do you want to add anything before we finish?
Thank you very much, Professor Juan, for interviewing me. The only thing I would like to add is anyone who wants to read the research report can access this on NIIT's website.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.